Well, hello there, do hope you're all well. Now, people familiar with my channel obviously can tell. I always enjoy listening to James O'Brien because I always find him quite educational and I always learn something. But another presenter I always enjoy listening to is Nick Abbot, especially on a Friday and Saturday night with his soundboard, and the madcap world of politics is always puts a smile on my face. But on a Sunday he does this little serious show. When he first started it, I thought, not sure if I'm going to like this. But, you know, you give it a go. But it's grown on me, and it's done quite a few very good, interesting conversations, and it's become very much part of my weekend. Well, he's also started to do his little slot of what's happening in America, where he talks to a radio presenter for K.I.R.O, K.I.R.O Radio 97.3 with Dave Ross, I think that's his name. And it's quite interesting to see what's happening over in America, at the other side of the Atlantic, so to speak. Enjoy.
Let's go to America. Dave Ross is presenter for K.I.R.O, K.I.R.O 97.3 in Seattle, and joins us now. Hello, Dave.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. My football team just lost very badly, but considering, I'm doing okay.
Is that American football?
Yes. Is there another kind?
A much more interesting kind. I'll tell you about it later.
Okay.
Now, in America, as with this country, the left seems to specialise in forming a circular firing squad and taking itself out so that the opposition doesn't have to. And this is possibly what's going to happen to Joe Biden's economic agenda, his $1 trillion infrastructure plan. It's a sort of an FDR's New Deal from the 1930s, isn't it?
Well, it's in two parts.
Why might it fail?
Well, here's the thing. They divided it into two parts, right? So you have the $1.5 trillion plan, over 10 years, by the way, to rebuild roads and bridges and internet and the traditional forms of infrastructure. And then you have what the progressives in the party want, which is a $3.5 trillion plan, which would provide some free college, daycare, human infrastructure, as they call it, medical leave, that kind of stuff. I think the kind of stuff that you guys take for granted, but we really never had here. And the idea was, since the two houses of Congress are so closely balanced between Democrats and Republicans, they'd pass the smaller roads and highways bill first because they could get some Republican support for that. And then they would do the bigger one, the progressive bill, second. But the progressives don't want to join in voting for the smaller bill unless they're absolutely sure the bigger bill is going to get passed, and Republicans are dead set against the bigger bill. Add on to that the fact that the fiscal year ends on the last day of September, and unless a spending resolution is passed by then, the entire U.S. government shuts down. But we're not done yet, because we also have something called a debt ceiling, where you can only borrow a certain amount of money unless Congress raises the debt ceiling. And that money is going to run out in the middle of October, at which point, if the debt ceiling isn't raised, we'd be defaulting on our debts, and our credit rating would plummet. And so I don't really know what to make of it. I mean, everything is racing to a big conclusion all at once. The voting starts on Monday, and we're just all crossing our fingers that by the end of the month, the United States of America still exists.
Right.
Right.
So, tell me more about your football team. No, don't. So if I got this right, the $1 trillion infrastructure plan is for bridges and roads and the things that everybody needs. The $3.5 trillion plan is for people, to help people. And that's the part that the Republicans don't like. They like bridges, they just don't like helping people.
Well, they would say that the federal government is overreaching, that the states could do a lot of this on their own, and because of the size of our federal debt already, to add more trillions to that would create massive inflation, which would hurt everybody. So I'm pretty sure they would take offense at being categorized as being anti-people. They feel by stopping this, they're actually helping people.
Right. The Republican Party do seem very, very concerned about the federal debt, but only when they're not in power.
Yes, that's true. Well, I mean, the whole thing with this debt ceiling is it would prevent us from paying off the debts that were incurred by the Trump administration. So, yeah, it's there's a lot of posturing going on. They're going to be taking a lot of symbolic votes. They have something to campaign on next year. And Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, says she's got it all under control. She's as cool as a cucumber. But we keep getting leaked threats from the progressives in the Democratic Party saying that they're going to tank this whole thing unless they get their bill.
Okay, let's talk about the possible use of the National Guard to replace health workers in New York. Because as with here, is it state government or the national government that's insisting that health workers be vaccinated?
That is something that Joe Biden has said should be a requirement.
Right.
There's a big dispute over whether he has the power to compel the states to do that. I'm pretty sure the state of New York is insisting also that healthcare workers be vaccinated. I know here in the state of Washington, our governor has imposed a similar requirement, and it's a risky thing because there are some people who would just as soon, for one thing, they're exhausted because of the pressure they've been under, but are, I guess, willing to walk away from the job rather than get a vaccination that they still are worried might hurt them.
Yeah.
And this is something else that I guess we're just going to have to see how far it goes. But they have called the National Guard in the past to do this. There's only so many of them, though, and I'm not sure how that would work. I mean, if you've been to, I know how your hospitals are organized, but you have a team. It's team medicine. You got to know each other and know what the role is. And I would think it'd be very hard to plug in some outside person who has never been part of the team before. To suddenly start treating these patients. Maybe they're going to set up separate National Guard units outside the hospitals, at military tents. I'm not really sure how that would work.
I'm not quite sure what the National Guard are. I mean, are they medically trained?
Yes, I mean, it's like any army. They have medic units. So the National Guard, they are people who are not in the Army full time, but they probably were at one time, and they join what are called the National Guard of the Reserves, where they will drill on weekends, a few weekends a month to just stay in shape. And then the rest of the time, they're just working normal jobs. And they're called up in emergencies for things like hurricanes and floods and wildfires and things like that. And early in the pandemic, last year, they were called in to set up, for example, in this area, there were emergency tents set up outside the football stadium because we were worried about a rush out in the hospitals. Fortunately, never had to be used. But here we are with another surge again, and so they're talking about bringing in the reinforcements.
Right, so these are people that do all sorts of jobs, amongst which they would be medical professionals anyway, and it's those particular ones that are going to be called up. Right. And it's quite a large number of hospital staff who are vaccine resistant, isn't it? It's about 16%.
Yeah, I'm not. Well, I'll take your word for it. It's caught a lot of us by surprise because you would think that being in the medical profession and being familiar with how extensively these vaccines have been tested, the healthcare workers would be the last ones to hesitate, and yet they have. I think some of them feel that because they have ample protective gear and they're in negative pressure operating rooms, that should provide enough protection for them from the virus without getting the vaccine. And to be fair, I've had coworkers who have had reactions to the vaccine that have taken them off the job for at least a couple of days before they feel well enough to come back. So that may be a concern as well. But, it's a problem. Then we have the next wave, of course. We have the boosters coming up in about at least a month for me. I never had a reaction to the first two, so I'll get the booster, but there will be others, I'm sure, who will hesitate at that too. And I don't know if we have this level of reluctance, how we finally lick this thing.
Well, yes, quite. Talking of health problems, it's only a health problem. Let's talk about the tangerine elephant in the room. It's only a health problem that will stop Donald Trump from running for the White House again. Is that right? Well, he's probably going to run. That's what I keep hearing. I saw the
latest polling indicating that Joe Biden's approval ratings are 42% now, so he's in the negative. A large majority are saying the country is on the, quote, wrong track. That's a question they always ask. And he held a rally last night in Georgia where he again said that the election was stolen from him, even though the Arizona audit that was run by the cyber ninjas who were determined to find fraud couldn't find any fraud. In fact, found that he actually lost by more votes than he thought in Arizona. But, I mean, he keeps... I just dipped into a little bit of the speech earlier this afternoon to see if anything had changed. It's pretty much the same line. And the problem is that Biden, between the Afghanistan exit, the border crisis, and, of course, the ongoing pandemic, and especially if his bills don't pass in the coming week, his support is really deteriorating.
Yeah, well, the quote that I was referencing was Donald Trump made the remark in a phone interview on Friday night ahead of that rally in Georgia, asked by Real America's Voice, I don't know what that is, but probably a right-wing outlet, host what might prevent Donald Trump from running again. Trump said, I guess a bad call from a doctor or something. But he feels good at the moment. He wanted to make us aware. I think Joe Biden's going to need a bigger boat.
I guess so. I know that they're trying to groom the Vice President, Kamala Harris, to be at the ready in the event that Biden doesn't want to or can't run again. I think that's going to be kind of an uphill climb because she's just not really a familiar enough personality. So I don't know. I mean, strange things happen in American politics. The next presidential election is still a long ways away, and some dark horse could suddenly emerge as the savior the Democrats have been looking for, but they are definitely on the ropes at the moment.
And the Republicans, just finally, the Republicans seem to be setting in concrete their position for the next election, or indeed any election, local or national, that if they don't win, it's a false election. That's right, isn't it?
Yes, that's what they're doing. They haven't presented any evidence, but as I'm learning, much to my chagrin, having been in the news business for over 50 years now, that people don't want to know what the actual facts are. They want to read something that makes them feel good and makes them feel vindicated. So regardless of whatever security you put in, if somebody repeats the message often enough that the election was rigged, people will believe that. Now, the question is, what's the next step? What do they do about it? Some of the Republican states sort of flirted with the idea of allowing their legislatures to overturn the popular vote. That part hasn't flown so far. But, you're right. It appears to be this idea that if you don't win, you challenge the results. But we still don't know what the end game to that would be, what that would mean. Do you rerun the election? Do you just have the governor declare a winner, which would be chaos? I really don't know. Do you have any ideas? Is it worth doing a monarchy here? I don't know.
No, definitely not. Unless you like smiling and waving a lot.
Well, it might be preferable to the alternative at this point.
I guess so. Dave, thanks very much for that. That's Dave Ross, presenter for K.I.R.O, K.I.R.O 97.3 in Seattle.
So it's like over here then. Those on the Democrat side forming a circular firing squad, shooting it or wrestling each other to the ground and fighting amongst themselves. Well, those on the Republican side are just, if they lose an election or whatever, it's been stolen. If they win it, of course it wasn't rigged. If they lose it, yes, definitely rigged. Right, I shall leave the video here. Until the next time, I shall bid you farewell. Take care.